Trump's tariffs are doing what Iran never could, destroying America from the inside. I want to say something today that I think cuts through the noise of everything happening in the world right now. While America is focused on missiles and naval positioning in the Gulf, while the news cycle is consumed by the Iran war and what happens next in the Middle East, something is happening inside the American economy that may ultimately cause more lasting damage than any foreign adversary ever could. The tariffs. These numbers are telling a story. I do not say that to be dramatic. I say it because the numbers are telling a story that the political conversation is not telling honestly. And because I have spent a long time studying how great powers weaken, and the pattern I am watching right now is one I recognize. Great powers are rarely destroyed from the outside. They are almost always weakened from the inside first. And what the current tariff architecture is doing to the American economy, quietly, structurally, in ways that will take years to fully surface, is exactly the kind of internal damage that makes a nation vulnerable in ways that no enemy missile ever could. Let me show you precisely what I mean. If this is the kind of analysis that cuts through what the mainstream conversation is missing, subscribe right now. I publish every week, and I go where the comfortable explanations stop. The first thing you need to understand is what tariffs actually are at the economic level, not the political level. Because the political framing of tariffs is almost entirely disconnected from how they function in reality. A tariff is a tax. That is not an opinion. That is the mechanical definition of what a tariff does. When the United States imposes a 25% tariff on imported goods, the foreign country does not pay that tax. The American importer pays it. The American business that buys from that importer pays it. And ultimately, the American consumer pays it in the form of higher prices on the goods they buy every day. This is not a contested economic claim. It is not a left or right position. It is the documented mechanism by which tariffs operate, confirmed by every serious economic institution from the Federal Reserve to the IMF to the Congressional Budget Office. The political argument for tariffs, that they punish foreign competitors, contains a partial truth. Foreign exporters do face reduced demand, but the cost of that reduced demand is shared directly with American consumers and businesses. The question is never whether tariffs have costs. The question is whether the strategic benefits justify those costs. And this is where the honest analysis needs to begin. What are the tariffs currently on the table actually designed to achieve? The stated goals are bringing manufacturing back to America, reducing trade deficits, and pressuring trading partners into more favorable deals. These are legitimate strategic objectives. I am not dismissing them. The question I am asking is whether the current tariff structure, the scale, the speed, the breadth of what has been implemented is calibrated to achieve those objectives, or whether it has become something else entirely. Because here is what I am observing in the publicly available economic data. Manufacturing does not move because of tariffs alone. A company deciding to relocate production from China or Mexico to the United States is making a 10 to 20-year capital commitment. They are building facilities, training workforces, establishing supply chains. That decision requires policy certainty. What the current tariff structure has produced instead is the opposite of certainty. Tariff rates have changed multiple times. Exemptions have been granted and then revoked. New categories have been added without clear advance notice. The unpredictability itself is a manufacturing deterrent. Companies do not build factories in uncertain regulatory environments. They wait. So the primary stated benefit, reshoring American manufacturing, is being undermined by the very volatility of the policy designed to achieve it. Meanwhile, the costs are immediate and concrete. The Federal Reserve's own research on previous tariff rounds documented measurable increases in consumer prices for targeted goods. Washing machines, steel, aluminum. The price increases were documented. They were real, and they fell disproportionately on working and middle-class Americans who spend a higher percentage of their income on goods rather than services. The current tariff round is broader and more aggressive than previous rounds. The price effects will be proportionally larger. This is where I want you to think carefully about the timing of all of this. America is running a conflict in the Gulf that is putting upward pressure on energy prices. Energy price increases function as a tax on every sector of the economy. Manufacturing, transportation, agriculture, retail. At the same time, the tariff structure is adding direct cost pressure to imported goods across hundreds of product categories. You now have two simultaneous upward cost pressures hitting the American consumer at the same time, layered on top of an inflation cycle that has already reduced real purchasing power significantly since 2021. The Federal Reserve is watching this, and the Federal Reserve has a problem that it has not fully communicated publicly. Its primary tool for fighting inflation is raising interest rates. But raising interest rates into an economy already stressed by tariff costs and energy price pressure does not just slow inflation, it slows growth. It increases unemployment. It raises the cost of the federal debt at a moment when the debt load is already at historic levels. The Fed is looking at a potential stagflation scenario, the same combination of rising prices and economic stagnation that defined the 1970s, with significantly fewer policy tools available than it had the last time this happened. This is the part of the analysis most financial commentary is dancing around rather than stating directly. So let me state it directly. The tariff structure, combined with the energy price pressure from the Gulf conflict, combined with the existing debt load and the Fed's constrained position, has created a set of economic conditions where the traditional policy responses all have significant negative side effects. Cut rates to stimulate growth and inflation accelerates. Raise rates to fight inflation and growth contracts and debt costs explode. Maintain tariffs for strategic leverage and consumer costs stay elevated. Remove tariffs and the political narrative collapses. Every option has a damaging consequence. That is not a coincidence. That is what economic policy looks like when it has been pushed into a corner by the simultaneous pressure of multiple overlapping commitments that were not fully stress-tested against each other before they were implemented. Now I want to tell you the part of this that matters most for ordinary Americans. The global response to American tariffs is not simply retaliatory tariffs, though those exist and they are significant. The deeper response is the one happening in boardrooms and finance ministries around the world. The question being asked is whether the United States is still a reliable economic partner whose commitments can be trusted over a 10 to 20-year investment horizon. That question, about American reliability as an economic partner, is the most consequential economic question of this decade. The dollar's reserve currency status, the appetite for American Treasury bonds, the willingness of global capital to flow into American markets, all of these depend on a foundational assumption that American economic policy operates within predictable rules. When that predictability is in question, the cost of capital for the United States rises. The premium the world has historically paid to hold dollars and American debt, what economists call the exorbitant privilege, shrinks. China understands this dynamic better than almost any other actor. China's strategic response to American tariffs is not simply to impose counter-tariffs. It is to accelerate every alternative architecture, alternative payment systems, alternative reserve currencies, alternative trade relationships that reduces global dependence on the dollar-denominated American economic system. Every time American economic policy creates uncertainty, China's alternative becomes marginally more attractive to the countries trying to decide which system to align with. America's adversaries did not create this vulnerability. The policy created it. And the thing I find genuinely alarming when I look at this clearly is that a nation's greatest strategic asset is not its military. It is the trust that the world places in its institutions and its reliability. That trust, once questioned at scale, does not recover quickly. What should you actually take from this analysis? Understand that the tariff debate is not a simple story of America fighting back against unfair trade. Understand that the tariff debate is not a simple story of America fighting back against unfair trade. It is a complex set of trade-offs with real costs falling on real Americans right now, combined with long-term strategic risks that are not being communicated honestly in the public conversation. Watch what the Federal Reserve signals in its next several meetings. Their language will tell you more about the true state of the economy than any press conference from any political figure. Pay attention to what global bond markets are doing with American Treasury yields. Those markets are the honest scorekeepers of what sophisticated global capital thinks about American economic management. And talk to a qualified financial advisor. About how your personal finances are positioned if the stagflation scenario I described becomes the baseline rather than the downside case. The Iran war is real. The threats from America's adversaries are real, but the most dangerous vulnerabilities are always the ones a nation creates for itself. And right now, the economic architecture being built inside the United States contains vulnerabilities that no foreign adversary had the power to create on their own. That is the honest assessment, and it is the one you deserve to hear.